The sheriff stood up slow, flashing his badge just as Tex let out a turkey gobble so loud it froze the fake HOA cops in their tracks. One dropped his clipboard. The other tried to talk, but couldn't. What happened next will shock you. But first, let's go back to the beginning. It was the kind of heat that makes the air itself feel aggressive, thick, shimmering, pushing against your skin like a dare. June in our corner of Texas doesn't whisper. It barks. Sweat pooled at my collar before I'd finished aligning the 3 for $1 sign next to a milk crate of old vinyl records. Nancy, meticulous as ever, adjusted a gingham tablecloth beneath a display of mason jar candles and porcelain figurines that had seen 3 decades and 4 different living rooms. The scent of lemon cleaner, wood polish, and sun-baked rubber mingled in the breeze like a thrift shop's ghost. We'd worked for weeks organizing this garage sale, not just clearing out junk. This was a full production. Hand-painted signs on neon poster board dotted the neighborhood, nailed up with hopeful staples and a whiff of rebellion. Our front lawn had become a tapestry of small histories. My dad's fishing reels, Nancy's handmade quilts, a 1960s toolbox with its original rust intact. The Victrola, proudly spinning Ella Fitzgerald's Summertime, set a soundtrack as warm and scratchy as the day itself. We weren't just selling things. We were offering up slices of nostalgia to anyone with $1 and a story. That's why it hit so strange, so wrong, when the white golf cart rolled up like some kind of low-speed cavalry. The men who stepped out weren't neighbors. They weren't even the type to pretend to be. The taller one had the clipped posture of someone used to inventing authority, and the other wore that clipboard like a badge of righteousness. They didn't browse. They didn't smile. They made a beeline for the cash table, eyes scanning like drones. "We're with the HOA Enforcement Division," the clipboard guy declared, like that meant something. His voice had that nasal pitch of someone who enjoyed correcting others in public. "Section 14.6.1, no unapproved commerce." I stared at him. Our HOA barely managed to send out quarterly newsletters, and now they had a uniformed enforcement squad? "That's not a thing," I said. "And I know Barbara from the board. She would have mentioned if you two were deputized in a golf cart." His face tightened. "Sir, this is your only warning." And that's when he started taking pictures. Our plates, our guests, even a toddler holding a plush dinosaur. My jaw tightened. They weren't here to enforce. They were here to intimidate. But for what? And for whom? I didn't say it out loud. I didn't need to. The sound of a V8 engine rumbling closer said it for me. Tex was early, and trouble was about to get crowded. Tex Ferguson didn't just enter a scene. He declared it. The heat bent around him like it didn't dare touch him, the gravel crackling beneath each boot step like it feared being crushed. He swung his truck door shut with the same finality you'd use on a coffin lid, the kind of slam that says a situation's about to change. Permanently. The air shifted. Even the cicadas paused. Tex stood there, broad-shouldered and sun-baked, wearing that camo vest like it was church attire. The rifle case rested casually on his back, not menacing, just present, like a quiet reminder that not all threats raise their voices. Elk jerky bulged from the pocket of his vest, and in his other hand, slung like a greeting card, was a hand-carved duck decoy so detailed it looked like it might quack if you stared too long. He was grinning wide, the kind of grin that made dogs whimper and self-important men reevaluate their life choices. Well, y'all having some trouble with the garage sale cartel?" he drawled, as if he'd stumbled onto a comedy sketch instead of a brewing conflict. His voice had the syrupy charm of late-night radio, slow and easy, but under it was iron, coiled and patient. The two faux officers turned as one, their khakis stiffening, puffing out their chests like pigeons in a windstorm. The taller one squinted, raising a trembling hand toward the rifle case like he'd seen one too many episodes of Cops. "Sir, you need to remove that firearm from the premises. This is a residential zone and—" Tex let out a bark of a laugh that rolled over them like thunder off a canyon wall. "I ain't even unzipped the case yet, partner," he said, slapping the rifle's sling. "This here's just cargo. My real delivery is elk jerky grade A and this little fella." He held up the duck decoy, which I whittled out of cedar between wild boar hunts. Then his tone shifted. His smile didn't fade, but the warmth drained from it. "But you fellas don't look like no HOA I've ever seen. You got a badge number? HOA ID? A single legitimate reason for harassing my cousin over a few old fishing poles and a hand mixer?" The clipboard man blinked. We're operating under delegated authority from—" Tex took one slow step forward, cutting the sentence in half. "You impersonating HOA officers?" His drawl sharpened, his voice now taut as barbed wire. "Because here in Texas, that's playing with fire. Serious offense. Almost as dumb as trying to stop a man from trading his lawn chairs for pocket change." The men faltered. For a moment it looked like they might bolt, but pride and stupidity held them in place just long enough for the taller one to bark, weakly, "We'll be back, with real enforcement." Tex tilted his head, amused. "You do that, and bring a warrant with you next time." He paused, then added with a grin sharp as a Bowie knife, "Or a brain." They retreated to their golf cart in silence, the tires spitting up a pathetic puff of dust as they sped off, shadows of their former swagger trailing behind them like deflated parade balloons. Tex turned, stretched like he'd just finished a light chore, and strolled toward me, chewing on a strip of jerky like a man who'd just kicked off his own personal hunting season and wasn't planning to stop anytime soon. Tex wasn't the type to let a problem sit overnight, not when it smelled of deceit. He didn't need much, just a name, a reason, and enough brisket to fuel his instincts. That evening, as cicadas screamed from the trees and the screen door banged softly in the breeze, we sat at the patio table, laptops open, brisket bones scattered across butcher paper like evidence at a crime scene. Nancy poured sweet tea like a bartender prepping for a bar brawl. The meat sweated smoke, and Tex's fingers flew over a greasy keyboard with surprising finesse for a man who once shot a rattlesnake mid-slither. "What exactly is a private compliance group?" I asked, narrowing my eyes at a bland website filled with stock photos of smiling retirees and words like harmony, standards, and property value protection. Tex scrolled, clicked, then snorted. "Bingo. They ain't residents. They're paid watchers. Outsourced muscle with clipboards and low blood sugar." His eyes gleamed. "And look here. Contract signed off by Dennis Wilkins, treasurer, unauthorized by the board." Dennis, the same guy who once tried to ban wind chimes for being a sound pollution hazard. The man loved rules like a preacher loves guilt, and now he was importing strangers into our neighborhood to enforce fake ones, acting like a budget dictator while keeping the board in the dark. Tex leaned back, crossed his arms behind his head, and grinned. "So this Dennis fella thinks he can outsource tyranny and call it community beautification? Looks like he hired himself a compliance goon squad." By midnight, we had screenshots, downloaded PDFs, and half a spreadsheet Joyce had saved from a board email she wasn't supposed to receive. She'd stopped by after seeing Tex's Facebook post, just a blurry photo of the clipboard guys with the caption, "Neighborhood watchdogs or hired hounds? Stay tuned." Joyce, petite and shrewd with the passive-aggressive grace of a seasoned HOA veteran, practically bounced at the chance to help. "I've been waiting for this," she whispered like she'd been preparing for a neighborhood coup. "Dennis blocked me on the HOA page last year for posting about his dog peeing in my zinnias." And so the countermeasure formed, quiet, deliberate, and wrapped in polite smiles. The next Saturday, We didn't just hold a garage sale. We staged a full-blown community watch sting, complete with lemonade, folding chairs, and an actual sheriff's deputy just swinging by. Tex wore boots, his widest hat, and carried a turkey call slung around his neck like a war medal. As the fake officer's golf cart rounded the bend again, slow, sure, cocky, he raised his phone, cracked a grin, and let the gobbler scream. "Here they come," he said, with the composure of a man about to settle a very personal score. "Season's open." They strutted back into our driveway like roosters high on self-importance, clipboard raised like it was the Constitution. Polo collars popped as if they'd just returned from a heroic campaign in lawn regulation enforcement. You could tell they thought this would go the same way. Bark some made-up codes, wave a fake fine in someone's face, and walk off feeling like small-town emperors. Only this time they didn't know the arena had changed. And the crowd? Very much not on their side. They barely made it past the folding tables when the sheriff stood. He wasn't in uniform, just a ball cap, aviators, and a county-issued badge clipped low and lazy on his belt. Casual, but unmistakable. His Coke can hissed softly as he set it down on the arm of his lawn chair, rising like an old oak tree about to weather a storm. "Gentlemen," he said, loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear, "I've got news for you." They paused. Clipboard guy blinked. The taller one kept walking, not yet registering the shift in air pressure. The sheriff flipped his badge toward them, the sun catching it just right. "Impersonating HOA officials," he said slowly, each word slicing clean. "Issuing unlawful citations and harassing residents. You're done." The silence was instant and perfect. You could have heard a sweat bead fall off clipboard guy's brow and hit the sidewalk. His mouth opened, maybe to deny, maybe to explain, but whatever words were coming were drowned out by the most ridiculous, deafening turkey gobble you've ever heard in your life. Tex, of course. Standing by the record box, hand casually cupped around his mouth like he was calling birds across a marsh, he let loose again. The taller man flinched so hard he dropped his clipboard. A neighbor laughed. Another clapped. Someone's kid shouted, "Do it again!" The sheriff didn't laugh, though. He stepped forward, cuffed them both with efficient grace, and read their rights right there by the $1 vinyl bin, Johnny Cash spinning nearby like poetic justice. By Tuesday, Dennis Wilkins was no longer treasurer. The board held an emergency meeting on Joyce's porch, complete with iced tea, copies of bank statements, and a slideshow of Dennis's compliance contracts projected on a garage door. It wasn't a vote so much as an exorcism. Tex took the floor at the end, tipping his hat as he said, "If y'all want to run a community, not a kingdom, I reckon we'll get along just fine." The garage sale never really ended. It evolved, coolers came out, a grill fired up, and lawn chairs multiplied like rabbits. Someone brought fireworks, someone else brought their cousin's band. By sunset, it was a full-blown celebration. And by morning, Tex had staked a wooden sign into the yard, hand-painted bold red letters, "Hunting season is always open for bullies." No one questioned it.